Hello and welcome to whathifi.com. We're here today to take a look at the new Meridian audio system fitted to the latest Range Rover, the Range Rover Evoque. Now Meridian is a very established high-end audio company. It's been around since 1977, but this is the very first time the company's turned its hand to in-car audio. Traditionally, of course, it's a specialist in producing extremely expensive, extremely sophisticated hi-fi and home cinema components. Now the interesting thing about this system inside the Evoque is although it's a great deal more affordable at £995, it employs a lot of the same thinking as Meridian's high-end hi-fi and home cinema systems. For example, it uses digital active loudspeakers. It also uses Meridian's tri-field processing system, which has long been used to make music sound in Meridian's view more interesting than standard stereo. So we're going to take a closer look at what's on offer. So there are a total of 17 individual drive units inside this car, powered by 15 channels of power amplification. There's a total of 825 watts of output, which is obviously quite a lot. But the way it's done is quite distinctive. It's unique to Meridian's approach on sound reproduction. So what we've got are active loudspeakers. There's individual power amplifiers, Class D digital power amps for each loudspeaker. And then it's all controlled by Meridian's digital signal processing, or DSP. And that manages how the sounds are distributed around the car and also how audio signals cross over from one loudspeaker to another one. So the end result is something that they say gets closer to the Meridian audio traditional sound quality that people might be familiar with from their high-end home cinema systems in particular. One of those things I touched on earlier on is the tri-field feature. This brings into play the centre loudspeaker there, and that helps create a more cohesive experience with the sound moving from the left to the right and also being imaged properly in the middle as and when it's called for. That's all balanced up as well by Meridian's cabin correction, which is basically quite similar to the kind of re-equalisation systems that you'd find inside a home cinema component. It helps not only balance the sound but also take account of sound effects coming from outside the car and also road noise coming from within the car when you're driving along. Speaking of which, let's go for a drive. Well, the interesting thing about the way this system sounds is it is so very reminiscent of Meridian's home systems. Fortunately for me, I actually ran a Meridian system for the best part of a decade at home, and this brings back lots of good memories. It has that same, perhaps slightly polite, but in a good way, sort of presentation. And tonally, it's not in any sense aggressive. It seems to be very, very forgiving. It'll play absolutely anything, including fairly low quality MP3 files, of which happily I don't have too many, but nonetheless it'll play those and make them sound at the very least good. And if you treat it to a high quality file or a good quality source such as a CD, it can be really, really impressive. The dynamic range is huge. In terms of the presentation, I must say I really do like the tri-field presentation. I don't think anybody listening to the audio system in this car would want to listen to it in any other way. I think practically speaking, a lot of the other buttons and modes are actually quite superfluous because it's the only one that seems to make the whole system really snap into focus and present sound just as it ought to do. With a really good recording with a particularly female vocal or something like that, it can almost take the voice outside of the car, outside of the front of the windscreen, and create a very focused image. You don't get any of that overhang and lag and kind of wallowing bass presence that you can sometimes get in cars where the subwoofer is right at the back, mounted in the boot. Instead here, because it's actually underneath your seat, and then also the loudspeakers and the doors are quite substantial and also quite powerful, bass is really, really focused and really, really tight. This particular Evoque is fitted with the top-of-the-line satellite navigation system, which brings with it this rather lovely control screen and all the other things you'd expect to find in a modern top-of-the-line navigation system. It also serves as the touchscreen interface for the car's stereo. But this is distinct from the Meridian audio system. The only real Meridianness in here is a button that I'll show you shortly that allows you to access the Meridian DSP mode. All the same, it's very nice. It allows you to, for example, bring up all the data on your audio in there. It would be nice if it had album art and sleeves as well. Some car systems now do that, but nonetheless this is perfectly effective. You can switch between different sources. As you can see, the car's got analog radio, DAB radio, and then you can go in here and bring up different sources. That's music stored on the hard drive, USB inputs, 3.5mm phono input, stuff from Bluetooth via your phone or from your iPod. And all of that stuff brings in all the relevant metadata and allows you to, there you go, popped up on the screen straight away. It allows you to browse, and obviously a safer way of doing it while you're driving is you can control left and right with these thumb wheel controls and volume up and down there. And additional stuff is mirrored up here as well in this display screen between the instruments as well, so you don't have to spend your time looking down there while you're driving, which is obviously the safe thing to do too. All of that though is, as I say, distinct from the Meridian audio system. It's not necessary to have this, and that means of course you can have the Meridian experience even in a comparatively basic specified Evoque. One of the clever features that it does have, I must touch on this by the way because it's great fun, is this feature called Dual View. Dual View allows you to display independent imagery on the same screen. So you can set it up so that you can have the satellite navigation screen only viewable to the driver there, and somebody sitting in the passenger seat over there can see something completely distinct and different on the same screen. There's a TV tuner in this car, there's also a DVD drive down here, so you could be sitting there in the front seat with a pair of wireless headphones, which also come as part of the deal, watching the TV, catching up with the match, watching a film, whatever it might be, while the driver of course is driving along safely and unaffected by what you're watching or listening to, with the information on that screen there, and able to listen to the music through the speakers at the same time too. So that's all very clever. But back to the audio video feature, bring that one up again, and we've got this feature up here, settings, and go to audio settings there. And this is pretty much the only uniquely Meridian bit that you'll see at the front end, which is this DSP mode button. Now you can listen to your music obviously with it all switched off, just in standard stereo mode, where the audio tends to go wide across the car. It comes out either side here. You can bring in modes that will be familiar to home cinema users, Dolby Pro Logic 2X and DTS Neo X, and they of course do what you would expect them to do. They decode stereo and they play sounds through multiple loudspeakers using the surround loudspeakers at the back of the car, the center channel loudspeaker up there, and all the speakers that are in the doors. Or you can engage the Meridian mode, which is the one that we would certainly recommend that you listen to. It's certainly the one that sounds best, and that uses the Meridian tri-field processing system to replicate the experience of a Meridian system at home in the car. So you get audio coming from the center speaker, but it's not localized to the center channel loudspeaker. It's not focused in there. It actually forms a really natural and cohesive front three, which is something that Meridian's been working on for a long, long time, as regular readers will know, with Meridian's home cinema systems particularly. So the end result is pretty effective. Now, considering this is Meridian Audio's first stab at an in-car system, we have to say it's a hugely impressive achievement. It builds on a lot of the thinking that the company's put into its hi-fi and home cinema components over the years by using multiple loudspeakers, digital active crossovers and DSP processing to create a system that's got terrific dynamic range, excellent imaging, outstanding clarity, and a great cohesive tonality with whatever you want to play. It basically makes pretty much everything sound good. Perhaps the most surprising but also welcome thing of all is that the system isn't as expensive as you might think. Most Meridian audio systems can cost you tens of thousands of pounds. In this car, it's £995, so for Evoque buyers, that probably makes it a bit of a no-brainer option.